AM radio, an op-ed column, and Fox News is not enough. I want a center-right nation to fight for its soul, and its soul is represented in the arts. Its soul is represented in a world in which media is everything. AM radio is the lowest form of communication. It's tinny, it's not robust, it's not Avatar. I want Avatar. I want the right to enter the world of media to the extent and invest in media the way that the left does.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them, because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not.
You're listening to the Curt Schilling Podcast, a Breitbart.com podcast. The podcast starts now. Here's Curt with today's headlines.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Curt Schilling Podcast. Today I got Rick Ungar, one of the few remaining liberals on this planet who still has a place of rational thinking, even though him and I have talked, and I do believe that part of his brain never fired off when he was born, and it's just stopped working, which would explain where he is. But he's going to join me. Great conversation to be had there. And then from Breitbart Tech, our senior correspondent, Allum Bokhari, is going to join me. We're going to talk about Big Brother and the internet, and it's what's happening and why you need to be concerned. But first, we're going to start off with my favorite part of the day, which is listening to liberals eat their own young. And say things that make them sound as stupid as we honestly think they are. On Monday, MSNBC's The Beat, Rob Reiner, who didn't have the guts to stand up to anybody or anything when he was on Fox and meandered around his points. I'll let you listen. He's calling our president certifiably insane. Listen up.
At a certain point, he's going to hit the wall where the truth and reality are going to come and smack him upside the head. And he's going to have big problems, big problems.
Sort of an oops upside your head moment.
And it's going to be the biggest political plot twist you'll have ever seen in the history of this country, because you've got a guy lying, by the way, admitting to crimes all over the place. Everybody in this administration is committing crimes and admitting to it. But at a certain point, they're going to be held accountable. The first step is for us to take back the House and start having the right kind of hearings that will get the truth out. And then ultimately, over time, people hopefully will come around to accepting the truth, because if we don't, then we don't have democracy anymore.
Do you notice the lack of content when they say things like, President Trump's been admitting to crimes and his entire administration has been admitting to crimes right and left? Although absent in that statement is the actual crime he admitted to or committed, which we've come to find out after 18 months is actually nothing. The crimes that we know were committed were the DNC and the Clinton campaign and the Obama administration conspiring with the FBI and the DOJ to rig a presidential election. But the fact of the matter is you've got a bunch of people from Hollywood talking about needing a Hollywood-style plot twist, which is exactly what they need. They need something made up because what the real world is not working along with them. And then on CNN's New Day, you have probably one of the biggest idiots and clowns on the left, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who hopefully is going to run on the Democratic ticket, and I think he will. Listen to him talking about the NRA, which, by the way, the NRA is you and I.
Let me read you the statement from the NRA and get your response to it. The NRA says our client is suffering setbacks with respect to the availability of insurance and banking services as a result of a political and discriminatory campaign meant to coerce the financial institutions to refrain from doing business with the NRA. The actions of the defendants are a blatant attack on the First Amendment rights of our organization. Your response?
Two different points. On the insurance that they are selling, I don't think there's any question, but that is illegal and violative of public policy. They're making a different point, which is I have been a long-time opponent of the NRA. I plead guilty. I believe the NRA represents an extremist group. I believe they've been counterproductive for gun owners in this country. I believe their politics seeks them to stop any common sense gun reform, because then, John, they would be out of business. Most gun owners support some type of reasonable control. 90% of Americans support background checks. The NRA has always been against any progress whatsoever. They're oblivious to the facts. They've caused carnage in this nation. They've done gun owners a disservice because there is a common sense compromise. If the NRA wasn't always threatening politicians who went anywhere near reasonableness. If you remember, President Trump, after the Parkland shooting, spoke in the White House conference room and asked reasonable questions. He seemed reasonable. Why can't we raise the purchase age? Why can't we raise the age for assault weapons? He met with the NRA. He did a total 180 the next day and was absolutely against any reform. And this nation still has done nothing on guns.
I don't even know where to begin. Fact of the matter was, everything he just said is not true. It's a lie. The assault weapons aren't legal to buy in the first place. 90% of Americans are for background checks. Well, it doesn't matter how many percentage. Background checks are part of the process. You can't get a license to carry a firearm without a background check, legally anyway. The NRA has not hurt anybody. I don't remember, and I don't know that the left could cite the last time a law-abiding citizen, a member of the NRA, committed a gun crime. The last time I heard a member of the NRA, he was shooting a serial killer. The gentleman that walked into the church was shot and killed by a gun-carrying member of the NRA. And again, this is, you notice the lack of content. They can talk all they want about common sense gun control, but when you get down to it, common sense gun control already exists. You have to have a background check to get a firearm. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't, you're either a person handing a firearm down in the family or you're selling a collector's item at a gun show. Neither of those things are linked to anything remotely resembling crime. And the left continues to scream about it, being the pusses they are. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't even know the current laws. And when you ask them, what does common sense gun control mean? Eventually you'll get to the bottom of the conversation, which is we'd like to end the Second Amendment and start over. Oh, my goodness. So anyway, and I guess this next soundbite is from Monday's broadcast on MSNBC Live. This is Democrat Tim Ryan from Ohio. President Trump made a really stupid tweet this weekend talking about LeBron James right after LeBron James had done an amazing thing, by the way. This school, I Promise School, is a phenomenal thing. But President Trump commented on Don Lemon and LeBron James and compared him, or actually called Michael Jordan a good guy and LeBron James a bad guy. But apparently, when you're comparing two black men, that makes you racist. Listen to Tim Ryan.
He's always got to find a black person. He's always got to find a brown person that he's got to prop up and make fun of to try to stimulate a certain portion of constituents that he has, a certain following that he has. And to do it to LeBron James after he just announced a $41 million initiative to start a school in Akron, Ohio, to give kids shoes and glasses and bicycles, to train their parents to make sure they get a GED or some training, and then to send all these kids who graduate from the school on a free scholarship to the University of Akron. I mean, the President of the United States shouldn't be calling anyone in the country dumb. His responsibility is to unite the country, not divide the country, and he keeps dividing. And when you do it to LeBron James in Ohio, I think LeBron James will get the last laugh.
The extreme with which, and let's just remember that Trump's retort to LeBron James came after LeBron James was talking trash about the president, but apparently that's okay. They just have no self-awareness. I don't know any other way to put that. But then you had a former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele on MSNBC talking about the tweet and calling President Trump a racist for making the tweet. Listen up.
He's made a commitment of $41 million to this community and helping these kids. I would dare say more than we've ever seen come close from the president in this area, in this space. So to even enter this space the way the president did is insulting in that sense. But then to sort of, talk about yet again when it comes to an African-American athlete, or in the case of Don Lemon, someone who is on national television as somehow being less intelligent and stupid, further speaks to how the black community has come to view this president as someone who looks down on us and who has an attitude about us that is nothing short of racist. And so the fact that Melania and others have been trying to walk away from that or take a different sidestep is nice. But the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, is the one who's doing the tweets, and that's the one that sticks.
So, I mean, the left's default position, if we don't agree with you, you're a Nazi or you're a racist or you're both, without any valid backing other than the fact that they believe you're one or both. We have China and Russia and North Korea and all these global threats. A conspiracy that never occurred has taken 18 months of our government's time in investigating. But hey, guess what? A Democratic senator from California had a spy from China on her staff for how long again? Listen to Fox News and the report about Dianne Feinstein and what we've found out this weekend.
It's the collusion story the media does not want to cover obsessively, perhaps because it does not involve President Trump and Russia. Instead, it's all about China infiltrating the office of a very powerful Democrat in Dianne Feinstein. It turns out her longtime staffer, Russell Lowe, who was a driver, as you said, and also liaison to the Asian American community in California, visited relatives overseas several years ago and became acquainted on the trip with someone who was connected to the People's Republic of China's Ministry of State Security. Quote, he didn't even know what was happening, that he was being recruited, a source told the San Francisco Chronicle. He just thought it was some friend. Well, not exactly. So 5 years ago, FBI agents showed up at Feinstein's office in D.C. and revealed her staffer was under investigation for possibly spying for China. In fairness, it does not appear the driver actually revealed anything of major substance, though we still don't know all the details, so the jury's out on that. But the contact with China was certainly serious enough that Feinstein forced the aide into retirement and tried to keep all of this hush-hush until the Chronicle blew the lid off of it. And the president has been trying to keep the heat on ever since, charging first on Twitter Friday night and then at a campaign rally Saturday in Ohio that Feinstein is the former chair of the Senate Intel panel. And the president tweeted, Dianne is the person leading our nation on collusion with Russia, only done by Democrats. Will she now investigate herself? Well, then at the rally, he noted that despite all the focus on Russia, there are many countries spying on us.
We got to stop meddling. We got to stop everybody from attacking us. But there are a lot. Russia's there. China's there. Hey, we're doing well with North Korea, but they're probably there. We got to stop everybody. We got to stop. But think of that. And I like Dianne Feinstein, I have to tell you. But I don't like the fact that she had a Chinese spy driving her. And she didn't know it.
The senator fired back with tweets of her own, declaring that after being contacted by the FBI, she jumped on it, removed the staffer, adding, compare that to your actions, attacking the FBI, refusing the advice of your national security team. Sad. I appreciated then and now the diligent work of our law enforcement and intel agencies and acted in the best interest of the country. Give it a try, she said to the president. Now, remember that in comparison to how the FBI handled Feinstein's staffer, Carter Page, the low-level Trump advisor who was put under surveillance by the Obama administration for alleged ties to Russia, has never been charged with anything, despite 2 years of investigations that, yes, are still ongoing.
So the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee had a spy from China as her driver, but that's apparently not a big story. And not only did that, but when found out and caught, she asked the person to retire. Why would you ask them to retire and not just put them in jail, number one? And number two, she tried to hide it. It's 5 years ago. We're just finding out now. And this guy was one of her chief aides. Not just her driver, but he was around her. Again, Dianne Feinstein was the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and she was had a spy as a close liaison inside of her campaign. You just can't make it up, guys. You really can't. As hard as you try, the real world will always trump, no pun intended, the stuff that the left wants to make up. We're going to take a short break. On the flip side, Rick Ungar, a liberal with a brain, which makes him rare, will join us. He's a political contributor to Forbes.com. Then after that, Allum Bokhari, Breitbart senior tech correspondent. Back in just a minute, guys.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson.
I want to actually take a couple of the references to Donald Trump from hip-hop. And then we're going to try to see if we can figure out why they like Donald Trump. Jay-Z said, I'm at the Trump International. Ask for me. Raekwon said, I'm the black Trump. They are comparing themselves to what he represents. His wealth, his achievement. Capitalism.
Sonny's Corner with Sonny Johnson. Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
You're listening to the Curt Schilling Podcast. Once again, here's Curt Schilling.
Joining me now is a senior political contributor to Forbes.com, the only liberal I've ever found with the guts enough to actually come on my show. And I found out he is probably as rare as Halley's Comet in that he's a liberal who is rational. He is Rick Ungar. Good morning, Rick. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning. Like you said, you think my mother dropped me on my head when I was a child. So
well, that would explain everything. That would right. That part of your brain didn't develop, and I get it, and that's okay. But so much going on I want to catch up with you about. First off, I had Candace Owens on my show yesterday, and I applaud the fact that you were exactly where you should have been on this, which is. No, I don't have a problem with people protesting. Well, I do have a problem with what happened yesterday, what happened to Candace and Charlie Kirk. This was a group of 7-year-old kids harassing 2 adults and actually assault, by textbook definition of assault, when they started throwing items and objects and eggs. I mean, it just, come on.
This is not my idea of how you do things. Look, you and I talked about this a bit before the show started. I'm not all that freaked out that they had their breakfast interrupted. People like you, a public figure, I said, how many times have you had your breakfast interrupted by somebody wanting your autograph? You know, it's part of the deal when you're a public figure. What really kind of got to me was every time Candace would try to respond, to say something, they would start blowing their whistles and doing that thing little kids do where they put their fingers in their ears and go, nah, 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 nah. I said, these are 3-year-olds. What a bunch of idiots. If you're going to protest, if you're going to interrupt their breakfast, if they want to respond to you, then shut up and listen. You know, it's very childish, these kinds of things. It's very stupid. It accomplishes nothing towards whatever their goal might be. And as somebody who, I can't even say that I agree with their point of view. If those people were Antifa, which it's been suggested, I honestly don't know. There's not much that Antifa is up to that I agree with. So it's just a net bad idea. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's a group calling themselves anti-fascist, made up of fascists, is what it is. I mean, it's just that simple. Hey, I want to ask you, and I got to say, I don't get bored of winning. I never did, considering I played baseball and sports for a living. But the results are in. There's probably going to be some recounts. But the fact of the matter is, Trump-backed candidates, if everything holds true, went 5-0 last night. You and I have completely opposing views, and I'm curious to hear your take on last night.
Well, I mean, look, it's always better to win than to lose. So I got to give you that. And it does look like the race that we were watching in Ohio that seems so interesting. The Republican will probably eke it out. There are a number of votes still out there to be counted. It doesn't look to me like there's going to be enough to bring the Democrat across the finish line. But, if you take a step back, and you look at this, and I will tell you, I've spoken to a number of important Republicans this morning. They are not happy about it, and I can understand why. You have to measure these things in terms of previous elections to see where the swings are going.
You don't have to. You don't have to, but you can. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you don't have to. Okay, but I do. I mean, that's certainly part of my method in analyzing. And I would be very concerned. I was a little surprised by. I'll tell you, the race that surprised me the most was up in Washington. Kathy McMorris, who is number 4 ranking in the Republican Congress, very well liked, very bright woman, by the way. I may not agree with her very often, but I've spoken to her. She's a very smart woman. She barely, and they have the same kind of system California has, where everybody goes on the ballot, they pick the top 2, and that's who runs in the general. She literally eked out a win over the Democrat by a couple hundred votes. That surprised me more than what I saw in Ohio. So, yes, I have to agree with you. Always better to win than to lose. But, boy, I'll tell you what, some of these races I'm seeing are really starting to foretell something that even I haven't been sure what was going to happen in November. If I were a Republican strategist, I'd be concerned.
Here's my take. I would have loved to have won by a larger margin. I recognize the fact that many of the margins were much smaller than the margins Trump carried these places in. This is after 18 months of 24/7, 365 mainstream media assault and attempt to destroy the administration and anything associated with it. My argument is this was the best possible punch the left could come back with. And even though they closed ground in significant numbers in some places, they did so without winning. And I look forward to the midterms and the other thing that I got to tell you, the kind of the elephant in the room for me, I'm so disgusted that we're sitting here talking about being excited about 37% turnout.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand.
Welcome to America. But
but you know what? Here's the thing, Rick. We are politicized. We are agitated. We have been inspired to get involved in this thing. Young generation, like no time in my life. And we're still talking about only 1 out of 3 Americans voting.
Yeah.
I've always said, listen, every time I've been in front of Jake Tapper, I said, he comments about the president. I said, you don't get to do that. You don't get to comment about the president. You don't get to have an opinion because you didn't vote. Is
that true that he didn't vote?
Oh, no, he said, I never vote in the presidential elections because I don't want to show bias.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I mean, I agree with you.
Because it's not right. It's not true. That's how it works.
Vote.
Right, and I've always believed if you don't vote, shut the hell up.
Yeah, I kind of with you on that. That's always been my take. If you don't vote, you forfeit your right to bitch.
I think you and I think we're very, very much what the Republicans and Democrats used to be. We can disagree vehemently on things, but at the end of the day, I always look at this like a team. You can argue all you want behind closed doors and in the clubhouse, but when you leave the room and the door closes, everybody needs to be on the same page. Everybody needs to be, the one for all for one thing. All right, I want to switch topics, and
Sure.
This is it's become, I don't know the word for it, but it's been a watered down thing. James Gunn, who is a Hollywood producer and a gentleman whose disturbing past of tweets has come to light. He's been fired. It seems to me, much like the term Nazi, pedophilia and pedophile is being watered down in ways that I don't think are healthy. The tweets came out. He got fired. There was and is a significant chunk of people in Hollywood and fans around the country who are defending this guy, the same group of people who jumped on Roy Moore as a pedophile because of a yearbook. I don't understand the hypocrisy. And I do you acknowledge or do you agree with me in that the hypocritical left is so far beyond anything we've ever seen from a hypocrisy perspective?
To be honest with you, I won't disagree with that, but I will quickly extend it to both sides because I'm seeing hypocrisy reigning everywhere. But yeah, you're not just seeing it with that gentleman. Look at the situation with the writer who the New York Times hired, and then compare that to what happened to Kevin Williamson over at the Atlantic. And by the way, I supported Kevin on that. I thought it was wrong that the Atlantic fired him because of some silly tweets he may have issued a few years back. But now the same people who were defending Kevin, on one of them, they look at this woman who was definitely tweeting some racist stuff against white people, and they're going after her at the New York Times. I think you need to be consistent on all sides. I don't know about this director. I do know that his cast members stood up for him, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know. He says that he was just trying to make a point. The real question here maybe has to be, how much do we count past tweets? You know what I'm saying? In terms of decisions you currently make. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I do know it's a perfect opportunity for people to be hypocritical. Like you said, when pedophile comes up with Roy Moore, liberals are all against him. I was against him. I thought it was horrible, right, those things. But then it comes up in terms of a director who made movies that they like, and all of a sudden they want to defend him.
Right.
We need to find consistency.
Well, it's also a group that's been defending Roman Polanski for, 3 decades?
Well, again, I was never part of that group.
Right. No, and I know you weren't. And that's one of the reasons why you and I can have a civil conversation, because despite being dropped on your head as a baby, you do have incredibly rational thoughts and thinking. Hey, listen, I want to...
You can have differing solutions to the same problems and different points of view without having to confuse that with basic good and bad.
Let me ask you a question. First of all, you read James Gunn's tweets, I'm going to assume.
Yes.
There's nothing in those tweets that's humorous, funny, or in any way, shape, or form not uncomfortable.
No.
Because that's not funny humor. Though that's
Right.
that goes to a darker place. But let me ask you something. It seems to me that a horribly flawed set of people, which is us as humans, have allowed, in my opinion, the left to set a standard that is impossible for anyone to live by. If you're going to be held to everything you've ever said, I don't know how much you follow Major League Baseball, but we had 3 players who in the last
since you
month
left, I just don't care anymore.
We as people are holding some of the most corrupt human beings on the planet to a standard that we couldn't live by, which is, hey, if you've made one comment in your past that we can even remotely associate with possibly being racist, you're done. You're a racist. You're finished. And that just doesn't
it's certainly possible we're overdoing it. But again, I'm going to push back and say it's not just the left. I'm not going to say the left isn't doing it.
But I would also ask you, no, I would agree with that, but I would also ask you, give me an example of hypocrisy from the right that matches this whole James Gunn thing.
Well, I don't know about, because of the pedophile thing, but I think you're seeing some hypocrisy in that other example I gave. People who were clearly supporting Kevin Williamson and saying he shouldn't be fired for past tweets are the very same people who are going after this woman at the New York Times. So I think that's hypocritical. You can be for them both. You can be against them both. But, it's pretty much the same situation. So I think you ought to be consistent. I'll give you another one. I had a Twitter thing going yesterday where I was making the point, not unlike what I'm doing right now, where, all these people who come down on the left are doing all these violent things and these terrible things and this and that. I don't deny them and I don't agree with them. But then I start pointing out things that have been done in recent history by people who have a different point of view. And do you know those people just push right past it like it didn't happen instead of being able to see, well, wait a second, maybe I am being a little bit hypocritical here. Maybe it is both
defense. It's the but. Hey, listen, your guy's a pedophile. Yeah, but we don't ever address the actual.
I don't like the but.
But here's the
You
thing.
have to acknowledge your own error.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, Rick, and I noticed you did it in a tweet. The Charlottesville event.
Yes.
We know for a fact that there were 2 groups of people there. There was a group of people marching in defense of the First Amendment, and then there was a group of repulsively disgusting, scum-of-the-earth white supremacists. Those 2 weren't the same thing.
You're right.
And the fact of the matter is, the white supremacy was born out of an age-old democratic philosophy and ideology that took root in the Nazi Party and all the things that go with it. Which, by the way, that's the other defense that the left goes with is Nazi. We're somehow if you're not a racist, you're a Nazi.
The right's been using it too, and I don't think.
But here's the thing. My point is this: if in the history of mankind, Nazi ideology is a far, far, far left ideal. Nazis aren't Christians.
Yes, it is.
Nazis don't believe in Christianity. Adolf Hitler despised religion to its core, but he recognized his need to use religion.
That's true.
And then I guess I wonder, let me ask you this as we close out. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, if I was Boston University, I would refuse to allow her to tell anybody I graduated from there with a degree in foreign relations, by the way. She's gone public.
Don't make me repeat some of the things Republican members have said.
Oh, no. Listen, again, I read, but she has come out and in many ways, I think, has shown more people than just me. Okay, let me give you this example. I just gave you the example in Charlottesville. There was the group marching for the First Amendment, and then there was the group of white supremacists. I look at the left in the same way in the sense that I think there's Democrats like you, although I think you are few and far between. And then there are the Democratic Socialists who have made no qualms about the fact they want to get rid of ICE. They want to get rid of borders. They want tax. They want a tuition-free education. The hardcore left is now so far off the reservation left that it doesn't represent anything relating to American values.
Well, you just gave me an opportunity to promote my podcast. Yesterday on the Pod Complex, I had on a Democratic Socialist because I'm really curious in understanding what is a Democratic Socialist. And folks might want to listen to that; they may find it interesting. But yeah, I mean, there are things going on in both parties where people are pushing the edges. I still continue to believe that that's not the majority of the country. Whether you identify as a Republican, whether you identify as a Democrat, most people are hanging around that middle, and which is where I think people should be. So, I think we have to be careful. Now, you talk about Charlottesville, and that came up in my little tweet storm yesterday. Look, at the end, it was an example, unfortunately, of where somebody who I think would be identified on the right murdered somebody with their car. Now, what bothers me is I'm not blaming you for that, Curt. You didn't hurt anybody. You may, have some or no similar points of view as that person who did that, but enough already with people blaming an entire group of people because one idiot, one sicko, does something crazy. For me to blame all of you for what that jerk did is just as wrong as people blaming the left. Sick son of a gun who was a Bernie Sanders supporter who tried to kill our congressman.
Which I was going to say, let me just ask you, when we talk about public violence towards opposing parties and ideals, part of the aggression, well, I think most of the physical aggression and violence by liberals and are to liberals and Democrats in this country are being done by a radically extreme group of people who belong to no party. They call themselves Christian. They're not. Westboro Baptist Church has as much to do with the political right as the Nazi brown shirts. That's not who we are. That's not what we are. But the fact of the matter is, the people that are coming out attacking Rand Paul in his front yard, shooting up a softball practice because of it being occupied by Republicans, they are making it known that there is a political bend to what they're doing.
Be careful. Going back all the way. You said people. Now, first of all, I don't think Rand Paul was attacked because of his politics. I think he was attacked because of where he was putting his leaves. And it wasn't people who shot poor Stephen Scalise. It was a person who shot Stephen Scalise, a maniac who did that. So this is where we have to be really careful. It wasn't people who killed that woman in Charlottesville. It was a person. And sadly, we have sick people all over the damn place, So I can't blame you for what that person did.
No, I know, but Rick, my point is this though, Rick, when you see the Candace Owens event yesterday, please show me a conservative equivalent of that by people who support conservative views.
Actually, we saw it, and I know this always kicks off a discussion of, well, was it a put-up or not? But we saw it during Trump rallies when he was running for office, and we've seen it long before. I'm not.
No, but Rick, that was violence against Trump supporters. That was not violence by Trump supporters. That was violence against them. And that's. Listen, I got to go. I apologize. I apologize.
Vince is hurting himself.
Yes, we will. You and I will get back together. Love what you do, Rick. I hope that part of the brain heals and you become a conservative before. No, I love you to death, buddy. Thank you.
Whatever brain waves are left, I think the ship has sailed. I don't know.
You take care of yourself, pal.
Take care, man.
Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlow.
Jeannie in Pennsylvania.
I think we've gotten away from what we really hired him to do, which is draining the swamp. If you look at the real picture of draining a swamp, you go in and you take all the water out of it. What does it leave? It leaves the gunk. He cannot get rid of the gunk. We have to get rid of the gunk. Everything he's doing, he's lowering the water so we can see who needs to go. The only way they can go is if we vote them out.
Breitbart News Daily, weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
We want to hear from you. Tweet the show at Garrick38. Once again, here's Curt Schilling.
Joining me now for the first time on my podcast. I've talked to him before, but I've never had a chance to get him here, and I'm glad I did, given his expertise. Is Breitbart senior tech correspondent Allum Bokhari. Allum, hello. Good morning. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, Curt. How's it going?
I am. So I'm at a crossroads here. I am a capitalist. I love capitalism. I love free markets. I believe free markets fix themselves. and are self-sustaining and self-correcting and all the things that go with that. However, I am now very concerned about the private sector in a couple places. The first and foremost place is on the internet, and we understand, and I understand Google and Facebook and a couple other very liberal companies, which, again, that's their right. They're private. That's fine. But they control a massive, massive, massive quantity of internet traffic and information. We know for a fact that they're playing games now with algorithms. We know for a fact that they're doing things with our information that we don't like them to be doing. We don't give them permission to do however they do it. They've been in front of Congress. I gotta ask you, do you see a solution that works for the private sector in this area as well as for you and I, the tax-paying American citizen who's being manipulated in ways we never thought possible?
Well, there are multiple ways in which the problem could be fixed. I'm not entirely sure we're really talking about a free market here, because especially, like, for example, smartphones, two companies control 99% of the smartphone market, Apple and Google. And if Apple and Google decide to ban you from their app stores, you're effectively shut off from the entire smartphone market. And that's exactly what they did to Gab, which is a competitor to Twitter. So that's not really a free market there. That's a duopoly. And these companies, Google, Facebook, have grown to the kind of size where you can call them monopolies. These are bigger than Standard Oil back at the turn of the century. In terms of how it could be fixed, there are a number of solutions people propose. One is regulating them as utilities, applying possibly Title II regulations. That's essentially what was applied to ISP to internet service providers during Obama's net neutrality era. That was overkill, I think, for ISPs, because ISPs don't really have an incentive to censor people. They don't do that. But we're clearly seeing that these edge providers that are on top of the ISPs and now control this vast amount of online communication are doing that regularly. We've seen Alex Jones in the past few days. And, regardless of your opinion of Alex Jones, the question here isn't if you agree with him or not. It's
right.
Do Silicon Valley executives get to decide what you can and can't see on the internet? I think regardless, even if you're conservative, liberal, you should feel uncomfortable by that. And actually,
that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Allum. They're deciding what we do and don't see on the internet. And, coming from the sports background I come from, I'm wondering, is there not antitrust violations or potential here for our government, number one? And more importantly, I guess would be the follow-up question is, let's just say we can take action. Who are we going to trust to take that? Our government? That we're learning is every bit as corrupt as any of the other groups were mad at. Who could possibly be an independent body that would help control this in a manner that allows true freedom of speech on the internet?
Well, what you could do is you could say these companies are no longer neutral platforms. They've become publishers and are therefore open to legal liability. And that would essentially let the trial lawyers loosen them. And you could also amend Section 230 to say that if you're banned for political reasons, then you have a right to sue these companies. And again, that would be a major incentive for tech companies not to censor people politically, because they don't want to have a ton of lawsuits. They don't want to go through discovery. You look at Google, just one lawsuit from James Damore is causing the company a whole load of problems. That would be one way you could disincentivize them.
I was going to ask you, Lucas Nolan wrote a really good piece on Breitbart Tech, guys. I'm talking with Allum Bokhari, Breitbart senior tech correspondent. Facebook is publicly announced they're going to remove hate speech. If these companies have announced that they're going to stop hate speech, in front of the Senate, Mark Zuckerberg could not define hate speech, or would not define that, which is the ultimate, where this conversation leads, the rabbit hole that it gets to is, hey, okay, you're going to remove hate speech. The definition of hate speech for me might be very different, and is very different than the definition of hate speech to liberals, because in my opinion, to liberals, hate speech is anything that they disagree with.
Yeah, the thing about hate speech is it has no legal definition in the U.S. because it's not a law in the U.S. It's a violation of the Constitution. So these tech companies are essentially using this word and using their own definition of it, depending on the circumstances, depending on who they want to ban. they're using this convenient word that can be stretched to cover almost everything that they don't like. Meanwhile, you've got people like Sarah Gion, this New York Times, recent New York Times hire, hundreds and hundreds of tweets, attacking white people, and she isn't banned for hate speech. So it's clearly applied only in convenient cases where they need to ban someone like Alex Jones because they're facing pressure from either politicians or CNN. And that's the other thing that needs to be addressed, because this isn't just a Silicon Valley thing. This is Democrats and the corporate media working with Silicon Valley to censor their competitors, their political rivals.
Let me just add, by the way, I don't think a lot of people know what's happened in the last 48 hours. Instagram, Facebook have also purged Tommy Robinson, his accounts from both of those platforms.
I think Instagram reversed that. They just said they recently reversed saying it was a mistake. The reason these mistakes always happen to conservatives is because these tech companies rely on algorithms and machine learning to manage their moderation systems. So oftentimes it's not a human, or if there is a human making the decision to ban someone, they're looking at data that comes in about the number of times this person has been reported. Congressional
candidate Elizabeth Heng realized that face first the other day after I don't know if you saw the ad she put out there, but it talked about her childhood in Cambodia and the horrible oppression she was under, and her family escaped. Facebook removed it, apparently as it was deemed to be either too shocking, disrespectful, or sensational for the platform. They actually restored it, but they gave no reason as to what the sensational content was in the ad. And you can go across Facebook and find things that are far more shocking, be it anything from animal abuse to spousal abuse in many different cases. And they're being allowed to do this unmoderated, I guess. This is I can't tell you how many times I've heard it's almost like the college sports problems. Hey, listen, we're going to investigate ourselves and we'll tell you what we find. Like they're not being held accountable, and this is and I'm the same as you. I think Alex Jones goes far and beyond any place he should go sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, free speech is accepting speech you do and don't like. And the left has made it clear they want to suppress free speech because anything that they don't like or disagree with, they don't want it to appear on the internet. This could have a profound effect, although Trump's candidates did go 5-0 last night. I think the onslaught by the left is going to have an impact at some point soon in our political process.
Yeah, and you have to look at the timing of this. It happened right before the midterms. That's very, very suspicious in my view. But yeah, it's certainly not about who you agree with. If you go into the Apple store right now, you'll find Mein Kampf in the bookstore. Does the fact that it's there means Apple agrees with Mein Kampf? No, of course not. Apple's just providing a platform for, various types of speech. And it also raises the question, is Alex Jones suddenly worse than Adolf Hitler's book? They'll stock Adolf Hitler's book, but they won't stock Alex Jones. They won't allow Alex Jones content to be downloaded.
That's as simple as it gets. They'll allow the publication or sale of Mein Kampf, but they're going to block Alex Jones. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And again,
the reason these double standards emerge is because these tech companies, they have these lists of rules that appear to be qualitative, but enforcing those rules is a system that depends on reports and blocks from users, and the more blocks and reports a user gets, the more likely the system is to sort of automatically suspend that person.
Right. Well, there's
blocking is not like.
I'm sorry. I was going to say there's an artificial intelligence component here that is learning, and I'm using air quotes, learning, and the learning it's doing is making it more and more oppressive to speech that it's been tuned into and programmed to eliminate, and you're just going to see more and more and more voices silenced on the internet, about the internet, and around the internet that liberals don't agree with, and that's I don't think that's okay for anyone. And again, I don't like to read things that I'm against. But the fact of the matter is I don't have to. That's the other piece is they're removing content that no one's being forced to watch.
yeah, if you don't like it, then you don't have to see it. There are all manner of tools that you can use to filter your own experience in social media. You have blogs, you have now block lists. You have like safety filters. They could even add. I've written an article about how they could add a hate speech filter if they wanted to, and then people who want to not see what this vague idea of hate speech, then they can have their own little safe space. But I don't see why that's imposed on every single other user.
I was thinking yesterday, what an awesome thing a crowdfunded GoFundMe, public sourced, public funded internet conduit on the internet would be. Like, how could you put up a competitor to Facebook and the answer is most likely no, because we saw what happened with Gab AI. That they've got the market cornered in ways that I don't feel are lawful, because I think if there was a platform that we could all go on that was not filtered with anything, obviously you filter out the porn and all the other idiotic stuff, but there is no forum for that anymore. You have to kind of hide on the internet to do that, and it's no longer possible to hide.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say that sort of stops a competitor is that there's a strong argument that social media companies like Facebook are natural monopolies. Once they acquire a certain number of users, they become the entrenched platform, at least for one generation, because ordinary people, non-political people, they don't want to go to a social network that doesn't have any other people on it. The attraction of Facebook is that everyone's there. So you look at,
and that's not going to change.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Google Plus. I mean, it had all of Google behind one of the most powerful and wealthy companies in the world, and Google Plus could not compete with Facebook because people would not move off of Facebook.
Allum, listen, it's always a pleasure, man, and I know you're busy. Keep doing what you guys do.
Thanks, guys. Great to be on.
Winners and losers was easy today. It was very easy. My winner today is the special elections Republicans that went 5-0. Trump-backed candidates went 5-0. People 5-0, despite the fact the world of the left has been assaulting the right from day one with all of the information, true or false, that they could. And you know what? They closed the gap. I wish they would have been bigger victories, but the fact of the matter is they didn't need to be. 5-0. Trump-backed candidates, and my losers are the guys that went 0-5. 5-0 to 0-5. The Trump-backed candidates beat Democrats and beat establishment Republicans, which is exactly what we're after. Well, it was just a good night. I was following along with the Balderson stuff, and I do like in the Missouri Attorney General race, Josh Hawley basically challenged Claire McCaskill, and I'm not sure that we're going to see them respond in kind. That the left will not want an unfiltered forum for a debate, because they know that they're going to get destroyed. So the winners are 5-0, Republicans who ran in special elections last night, and the losers were, well, the 5 that lost. So anyway, the blue wave is turning out to be exactly what we thought it was, which is a manifestation of the mainstream media and wishing the world was a place it isn't. So that's good stuff, guys. God bless. We will see you guys tomorrow. God bless. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to Rick Ungar, one of the few sane liberals left, and Allum Bokhari, Breitbart senior tech correspondent, who kind of should make you concerned and worried about what's happening on the internet with hardcore oppression of speech they don't like, that's the definition of what the Nazi Party did. If you didn't put up with their ideology, you shut up, or you were outed and ousted. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow, guys. Have a great day. God bless.
Breitbart News Tonight with Joel Pollack and Rebecca Mansour.
A lot of people not knowing what action they could or should take to make the difference. What I do is try to turn people on to sites like Breitbart, people who are writing and publishing the truth so that people will get educated. But, you kind of can't blame productive members of society who are kind of confused, perplexed as to what do we do to take this government back.
Sirius XM Patriot, Channel 125.